Hey guys, today I'm going to show you 7 reverb tricks that every producer must know, and these are going to be the difference between having a flat, lifeless mix and having a pro sounding mix that sounds really cohesive with loads of interest and variation. Make sure to stick around for the last one because it's an absolute game changer, and if you want more reverb and mixing tips, you can download my guide completely free below this video. Without further ado, let's hop into the DAW and get it done. Okay, so the first reverb trick I'm going to show you is reverse reverb, and you're going to love this. You can use it in any genre, and the first example I heard was in the Prodigy's Firestarter many years ago. So this is the effect that we are going for.
I hate this feeling.
I'm going to give you 2 examples of how to use it, but you would usually use it where you want to transition into a new vocal or a new instrument. It's a really smooth way of doing it. So this is how you do it. If we go to our vocal track here.
I hate this feeling because I won't be breathing you in my lungs anymore.
What we need to do is select the first syllable of the track, and we're just going to copy it earlier on in that track into a blank space. So it sounds like this. Just one syllable. You might even want to smooth it off slightly. Now, to make things easier, you can mute any other reverbs and delays you've got going on, so it's nice and dry. But then at the end of whichever processing chain you've got, you can put on a reverb. You can use any reverb at all. I'm going to be using the Valhalla Room for this, so I can zoom in nice and big for you. And then you need to make sure it's 100% wet, decay of about 4 to 5 seconds, and you get that effect. Now bounce that down into a new track. You can bounce to audio if you're using Logic, but if you're using Ableton, this is how you would do it. You can arm a new audio track. Make sure that the input here is coming from your vocal track. So that would be lead vox. And you just record it into it. And wait until that reverb tail has died right down. There you go. So now all you have to do is press R or reverse it in whichever software you're in, and now you've got this lovely smooth effect. Bingo! And this is how you would use it. You can delete that little clip from the first one, take off the reverb that you used to create it, and then you can just drag that up to just before the beginning of your vocals and when they start. And fade it out slightly so it's a bit of a smooth transition, and this is the effect you get. So let's hear that again quickly, and you can tweak how long you want it to fade in for by using the fades in your clips. And this is how you would use it in the second way. So you can use it for a melody as well. So here's our melody. Now there's already sidechain compression on this, so just pick the first note of the melody. Mine would be this, but as I said, it's sidechain ducked. So this is the note, and again, use exactly the same technique. This is the result we get. And you can use it later on as well. Just duplicate it. Let's have a bit of a shorter one. That's the reverse reverb technique. It's a great way to smooth in transitions. Okay, reverb trick number 2, the washout. Now this is a great way to build tension and contrast in your build-ups. And again, it doesn't matter which genre you're using or which DAW. So if we listen to our build-up. So we want to fade out some of those effects to allow more contrast. So what you can do is put a reverb, again, any reverb's going to do, on the channel, and then we'll automate from dry to wet. And this will fade it out over time, like so. And now this is the effect we get. So it takes out the power so it can come back in on the drop. We can do it on the arpeggio as well. And that trick works great over the entire mix as well. Okay, reverb trick number 3, the Reverb Pad. This is a great way to use reverb as an instrument that has a similar timbre to some of the other sounds in your track. So for instance, this is how we would create a pad out of a synth. Here's our arpeggio. So what we would do is we would just have one note playing on there, and again get to a part of the track where you're not going to mess up the composition you've already done. And we're just going to choose a middle C. And this is so when we load it into our sampler, we don't have to worry about tuning it. It's already going to be tuned. So you just put one note in, and then make sure you've got a reverb unit. Again, we can use any reverb for this to 100% at the end of your chain. So it's a bit smoother. And then, as we did with the others, we can just sample it into a channel. So bounce to audio if you're using Logic, or if you're using Ableton, you can do this. And then record from where that synth plays. And this is how you make it into a pad. First, we'll delete that ARP there, take the reverb off, reactivate whatever you've turned off that you wanted on the instrument usually. And now you can go into the clip, boost it if it's a bit quiet. We don't want this beginning bit because we want a nice smooth pad sound. So we can just take that out. We can consolidate it, and then we can load it into a sampler. Now any sampler will do, once again. So I'm just going to use the one that comes with Ableton, but you can use the one that comes with Logic, or you can use the one that comes with FL Studio as well. And then we just drag and drop it into the sampler. Make sure that sustain is set to full. Put a bit of release on it. Make sure that you've got multiple voices selected so you can play chords, and then you can add a little bit of attack to make it more paddy. And now we have a pad that's going to gel really well with the other elements in the track, so we could play along like this. Okay, reverb trick number 4, and this is an absolutely essential trick you just have to know whatever the genre. It's using your reverbs on the auxiliary channels, as there are many things that you can do, and we're going to be using them, a couple of them in the next 2 tips as well. So if we go to the vocals and turn on the reverb again.
I hate this feeling 'cause I won't be breathing you in my lungs anymore.
Because we've sent it from a send control to the auxiliary channel, you can see we can equalize that reverb as its own separate instrument. What you have to make sure is that, again, it's set to 100% wet when it's on an auxiliary channel. Otherwise, you're going to get that dry signal doubled up on the auxiliary channel. You can add EQ, you can add saturation, you can add any effects you like to that reverb and leave the dry signal unaffected. Let me give you a quick example. Let's just put a flanger on that auxiliary reverb, see what happens.
I hate this feeling 'cause I won't be breathing you in my lungs anymore. I don't believe that you're leaving me. We don't believe in love anymore.
Pretty cool effect, huh? Okay, reverb tip number 5. This is again an essential one. It's using an auxiliary channel for room reverb. And by room reverb, I just mean really something that's very short and close with a very short decay time. You can see here 593 milliseconds. Again, use any reverb for this. Just make sure it's to 100% wet. And then what you can do is feed in separate elements into this room reverb, like drum hits and whatnot. So let's listen to our beats and our bass with the room reverb on and see what happens when we turn it off. Listen how flat and dull that sounds. And this is what they sound like on their own. I've got 2 reverbs, one for the bass, one for the drums. So it's subtle, but it just adds an extra layer of warmth and cohesiveness to the whole track. And you can feed in little bits of room reverb to separate drums. That's a really good tip. Okay, reverb tip number 6. This is incidental reverb. And this is great for adding interest and little elements of surprise in your track. So for instance, if your bar is changing, you can add some temporary reverb to an element. And again, I do recommend using an auxiliary channel for this. So for instance, if we have a clap playing in our tune like this, and then we create an auxiliary channel with a reverb on it, Once again, you guessed it, 100% wet in the mix. Let's put a nice long decay on it. Now we're going to automate on that reverb just for a split second. We can do it with vocals, we can do it with synths, we can do it with drums, we can do it with anything. In this example, I'm going to show you with a drum. So I've got 3 claps all layered together, but this is the main one. Let's just automate on that incidental reverb. Show automation. And then on the last clap of the track, or of the bar, sorry, we're going to automate on that reverb. You hear what happened there? And that's another great way to add interest and variation into your music. And finally, perhaps the biggest, most important of all the reverb tricks, apart from maybe tip 1, that was pretty awesome, the sidechain compressed reverb. So there are 2 ways in which you can do this. You can duck it from the kick drum in a pumping effect, which is what you would usually use sidechain compression for, but you can also apply it to a lead or a vocal to help it cut through the mix. First, I'll give you an example of the pumping sidechain. So we have our melody here being sent to this reverb. And I've applied a sidechain compressor being triggered from the kick track, which means it ducks. And that gives it more energy when the drums are playing and when the kick's playing. This is off. It's subtle. So that's the first reverb sidechain technique. The second one is really Professor. This is where you trigger the sidechain compressor from the dry signal. So let's use the vocals for this example.
I hate this feeling 'cause I won't be breathing you in my lungs anymore.
Really nice and rich, right? But it does sound a little bit washed out. So if we go to our auxiliary channel for the vocal reverb, I've just thrown on another sidechain compressor. And again, you can use the FabFilter Pro C2. That's a fine compressor to use, or any other compressor that has sidechain facility. Logic Pro and FL Studio both have that functionality built into their compressor. Okay, you can see I've chosen the audio from the lead vocals, and I'm ducking it using the threshold. So this is with no compression on the reverb.
I hate this feeling 'cause
And this is with some.
I won't be breathing you in my lungs anymore. I don't believe that you're leaving me. We don't believe in love anymore.
That's off. And this is
I
on.
hate this feeling 'cause I won't be breathing you in my lungs anymore.
So you can see the dry signal is ducking the reverb very slightly when the dry vocals are singing. And that what this does is allow space for the vocals in the mix, or the lead synth, whatever you want to use. Usually it would be the lead synth or the vocals. And this is a real game-changing technique, guys. This will make your vocals pop in the choruses. This will make your lead synths pop as well. So all together, let's hear what we've got. So there you go, guys. I really hope you've enjoyed these pro reverb techniques. If you want to learn a lot more about how to produce truly professional sounding music that can top the download charts and get played by your favorite DJs, do check out my 8-week production masterclass. We've had students who've released music on their favorite labels like Anjuna Beats, Armada, Nervous Records, and many, many more. And we go through everything you need to know, just like this lesson today, over the course of 8 weeks to get you up to a professional standard of music production. If you are interested, check out the link below. Other than that, don't forget to download my free mixing guide. And if you like this video, please like it, share it, and subscribe to the channel if you want tips like this each and every week. Thanks for watching, and until next time, cheers and happy producing.